Before we start getting into the meat of this story, the first thing I want to do is offer condolences to the family, friends, and loved ones of Lieutenant Christopher Carey, the pilot that was killed in this accident. I have never seen a time in my life where planes, military planes, are just falling literally out of the sky during training exercises, especially out at White Sands. Now, this particular aircraft in question, this Super Tucano, I covered 6 months ago as something to keep an eye on because it is something the South American militaries absolutely love to use. It is a low-cost alternative, of course. Heads up, it wouldn't stand up against an F-15 or an F-18 or anything like that, but for some ground attack missions, this is a much better, much more deployable alternative. Now, what they're not saying in this particular story here is what the reasoning was behind the testing between this aircraft, the Super Tucano, and another one called the Wolverine. But we'll read real quick. This flight was part of an Air Force ongoing light attack experiment that is currently testing the A-29 and the Textron Aviation AT-6 Bravo Wolverine to see if a low-cost attack aircraft could replace higher-cost Air Force assets for certain missions, I should say. The Air Force canceled a series of test flights on Friday as a result of the crash. Now, this was something that had been talked about for a long time in South America, using this aircraft for operations down there, but they're trying to kill that story and keep it quiet, because I do think right now for sure that they have something in the works for Venezuela. And I did a video last January basically covering that exact scenario with this aircraft. Now, real quick, this is from 2 February of this year. So clearly this has nothing to do with the accident, but they were going to do a combat demonstration, and they decided not to. And we'll just read real quick. Rather than do a combat demonstration, we've decided to work closely with industry to experiment with maintenance, data, networking, and sensors with the 2 most promising light attack aircraft. Here, they're still talking about wanting to use these in the Middle East, but we don't have anything like that going on right now in the Middle East. So there's only one place they could be worried about using this, and that would be down in Venezuela. And with the recent election of Mr. Duque in Colombia, who is chomping at the bit to start killing people, because that's what globalists do, that's what they wake up in the morning and hope they can achieve. I don't honestly see how there's any other place in the world that would be more suited for this type of an aircraft. But real quick, 10 January, let me zoom out here real quick. This is my video. Title is Maduro War Machine Revealed. Panama has zero chance. This is where I was covering. A lot of people still at that time were under the impression that the U.S. military was very heavily present in Panama, and Panama would be perfectly safe, and that's nothing could be further from the truth. We don't have any assets down there like we used to, but I'll just play a couple minutes of this, and it'll explain what I'm talking about. They have enough firepower to get in and get ensconced in Panama and overrun Colombia before the U.S. could even respond. And they have the ability to do it. They have the technology to do it. They got 16 Fighting Falcons and 23 Su-30s. Now, that's not very many compared to us, but it would be all they would need, since the Panamanians have nothing. But in this part of the video, I wanted to show you something down here where they're hiding something. They have this under trainer aircraft, Embraer EMB 312. They have 19 of these suckers. Now, we build these here in Jacksonville. Does that look like a trainer aircraft to you? I'm not going to waste a whole bunch of time since we only have a couple minutes left in the video today. Do your research on this particular aircraft. It is a bad MF. U.S. Special Forces love this aircraft. It is a mean, nasty one. The Colombians have a lot of them. We've just upgraded them to the A-29As. And, while they are no A-10 armor-wise, they're easier to operate, easier to maintain. They can stay on station longer because they have a better fuel usage rate than those bigger jets do. They don't cost as much. You can lose these and it's not going to break the bank. And they have performed amazingly well down there in Latin America. The Colombians used them against the FARC. And believe me, they have them. I know the Venezuelans are calling their versions trainers, but they're not. Trust me. All right, I won't waste much more of your time. You can watch the rest of that if you want to. Point being is, if we were using both aircraft, the Wolverine and this, what was more than likely going on is we were probably trying to determine the weaknesses of this aircraft heads up against a Wolverine. They might have tipped their hand here. They might have decided that they're going to go with the Wolverine instead of the Super Tuck. And if they do that, well, they would clearly, if they have designs on Venezuela, they're going to want to know what it's going to be like to come up against one of these things and how it could be dealt with, and what better way to do it, put one up in the air and fly against it. That was the whole point of Top Gun. I think they were flying against some version of a MiG something or other back in the 80s, but I'm sure the geeks out there will know. I didn't mean that in a nice way. But also, a lot of people don't remember this either, and we did this not very long after that. This silent story about 415 Air Force personnel heading down to Panama inexplicably. Now, the picture isn't from that, but the picture is just representative of it. The picture is from many, many, many years ago, but the deployment was just 11 February of 2018. And I'll zoom in there real quick. Well, that's as good as we're going to get. So 11 February 2018, you can, the silent invasion of Panama, you can read up on this. But they went down there to do something that was never explained. And what the Air Force would have been doing down there, I think we can probably get an idea now of what's happening. Because operating in Venezuela, it's not like operating in Syria or operating in Afghanistan or Iraq. You go down to one of these places like this, and air operations will be entirely different. It's mountainous, it's full of jungles, there's civilians everywhere, and you just won't be able to operate nearly as freely as you could in open desert and open urban environments like we're used to. This is another thing that I'd started talking about last summer. It's another road I don't want to go down, but if we do have designs on this, we just don't have the jungle personnel. We don't have the guy. I mean, unless they got a whole bunch of them in some secret location, maybe in Africa, maybe somewhere else, that have been doing jungle training for this. You just don't get to go in and carpet bomb areas like this. They've been trying to oust the FARC and the ELN out of Colombia for 50 years, and they haven't been able to because it's just the terrain is impossible. And the cover is impossible. It's just, you can't see anything from even 500 feet up. You can see nothing. So we will leave it there, but once again, thoughts and prayers to the family, friends, loved ones of Lieutenant Christopher Carey Short, America's finest, lost in training again. Planes just falling out of the sky from the C-130 in Mississippi that we lost. Last summer we lost Blackhawks. We lost all sorts of aircraft, and almost none of it in combat operations. It is just the strangest damn thing. I mean, I know we had accidents when I was in, but it doesn't seem like we had nearly as many or nearly as much loss of life, especially in training here in the States. It could just be a memory thing with me, but boy, especially with an aircraft like this, which is just a very tough, rugged little aircraft that can really take a pounding. It can. It's not complicated. It doesn't have nearly all the bells and whistles of the F-15s, F-18s, F-22s, but to just get something up in the air that can put ordnance on target quickly and easily, you don't get better than this one. Anyway, have a great weekend, guys. Like, share, subscribe.